We've got 43 million aliens here in the United States, and without getting into the study and other details as to what happens, some of them vote, and they vote in large enough numbers to change the outcome of elections. And quite specifically, there was an analysis out of Old Dominion University that found that aliens illegally voted in large enough numbers to give Al Franken the Senate seat initially. And I raise that to point out that the corruption matters in all sorts of ways. And the consequences are long-term. And now we've got quite credible allegations that he's a sexual predator. But he got there, it looks like, by illegal votes. So that's why it's important we have election integrity. And we've got, Judicial Watch has this major election integrity project going as well. And one way to get illegal votes is by making sure that there are voters who are ineligible to be there and shouldn't be there on the voter registration rolls. So if you have dirty voter registration rolls, it means you can have dirty elections. Because if you know someone has died or someone has moved away, people can vote in their names and cause other problems. And so Judicial Watch has been trying to enforce the law, the federal law, because the Justice Department hasn't done it, to make sure that states take reasonable steps to clean up the rolls. And we did an analysis, and we've done this work over, we've had lawsuits against Ohio and Indiana that resulted in their cleaning up the rolls. And more recently, we've notified 12 states, and I wish I had printed out the list of states, that have more names on their voter rolls than are eligible to vote. Okay? Just think about that. If they got 100 people who are eligible to vote, they might have 110 people on the rolls. So that means, in our view, and I think it's quite reasonable to assume, they're not taking reasonable steps to clean up the rolls. Doesn't have to be perfect, but they got to do something. And that clearly isn't happening in these 12 states. They include Maryland, Illinois, Kentucky, California. Those are the only ones I can recall at this time. And we warn these states, unless you do something, we're going to take steps to sue you. And we sued Maryland for documents already. But this week we filed our first major lawsuit in this regard, and we sued Kentucky. So your Judicial Watch doesn't just talk about election integrity and voter fraud and cleaning up elections. We go to court to try to protect our elections from fraud. And in this case, by making sure the voting rolls are as accurate as they reasonably can be, so elections are free and fair. And Kentucky, which I think is mostly a Republican state, is a mess, an absolute mess. They have 48 counties that have more registered voters than citizens of voting age. 48 counties. And so, look, it's a strong indication that the jurisdiction is not taking the steps required to clean up the rolls if they got more people on the rolls than are eligible to vote. So this is a really important issue. And this is the first lawsuit we filed. Doesn't mean we won't file other ones. In fact, I suspect we will. Can't tell you where we're going to sue, but we will sue again, I suspect. I'm only the president, so I really don't know that much. I'm just kidding, of course, but I do know that we're planning to file additional litigation. So Kentucky is a mess. So we're going to sue. We've already sued in Kentucky, and we're trying to get them to clean up the voting rolls. Now, the Secretary of State there happens to be a Democrat. And she kind of went ballistic when we sued and said, you know, all our cases get dismissed, and said we want to suppress the vote, which is ridiculous. It was slander, really. You know, when you got voter fraud, or when you have voter fraud, you're stealing votes. You're stealing votes from honest Americans who think they go to vote and their vote should count and shouldn't be stolen by fraudulent votes. And when you have dirty voting rolls, you're messing with elections and clean elections. So we're trying to basically protect the votes of honest Americans.